Today I'm so excited to share with you a $30 homemade Thanksgiving dinner. Now this is a riff on dinners I've done in the past, Thanksgiving dinners that have been only $20. So in prior years, actually 3 prior years, I have made videos where I made Thanksgiving for just $20. And I've been to multiple stores. So we've done Walmart, Aldi, and Dollar Tree. So if you want to check out any of those $20 Thanksgiving dinners, I'm going to put all of those down in the description box for you so you can check them out as well. I have a playlist. Now I think that $30 is a very reasonable price, especially for a homemade Thanksgiving dinner. So I didn't buy the instant mashed potatoes or the instant stuffing. We made our own from scratch, which actually sometimes costs a little bit more because those items are so expensive this time of year. But if you are looking for a Thanksgiving like that, I have priced out a $20 Thanksgiving that has items like that, and that will be down in the blog below in the description box as well. So it's a really robust blog that is full of information about Thanksgiving and different options that you'll have, and that's also where you'll find all of the recipes in this video. So for this meal, I also purchased some basics like flour, sugar, yeast, butter, things that you might already have on hand. So I also priced out the meal without what I would consider to be pantry items, and that actually comes to around $22. So you still can get quite a deal. I always recommend that you shop your pantry before you shop for Thanksgiving because you may have things on hand that you need for Thanksgiving and you don't need to buy them twice. You know, why not spend less? So for this meal, I did my shopping at Walmart and I made purchases to make some appetizers. We're making homemade bread and then making a kind of bruschetta type thing with a baked brie and a cinnamon apple topping. Absolutely fantastic. And then for the main course, I made homemade stuffing with that French bread. I made little pumpkin bread rolls, homemade mashed potatoes, air fried Brussels sprouts, homemade cranberry sauce, homemade gravy, and then I did a turkey style chicken. So because at the grocery store that I went to, they didn't have any turkeys that wouldn't feed my family for like more than a week, and I really didn't want to eat turkey for a whole week when we're gonna eat turkey later in the month too. So I wanted something smaller and they just didn't have that this time of year. So I decided to go with the chicken option. And I also wanted to show people that you don't have to go whole turkey in order to have a great Thanksgiving. And I always want to show people that you don't need to even spend a lot of money to have a great Thanksgiving. So this option is a chicken. In the past, I've done turkey breast. That was really delicious. I've even done like turkey roll-ups. That's just taking some stuffing and then rolling deli turkey meat around it. It's actually quite delicious. You could even do a ham. Those are inexpensive if you're not turkey people. Ham is a great option. And especially if you're having a smaller gathering, I have a wonderful recipe for turkey tenderloin in the slow cooker that is super easy and delicious. As with the other recipes, these recipes will also be in the blog post. And because I purchased my meal so early in the season, there wasn't really sales yet. So I always encourage you to check for your sale prices at your local grocery stores. Sometimes they sell things like a 99-cent bag of potatoes. That's much cheaper than I was able to purchase mine for at the time. And then turkey as well, that goes on sale. And actually this time of year, Ibotta usually does a deal, and they are doing a deal this year. So if you don't know what Ibotta is, it's a cashback app rebate program where you kind of scan your receipt, pick out what items you want to purchase, and then you get cash back, and you can actually just redeem that right to your bank account, or you can get gift cards. Now, I love using this on purchases that I'm already gonna make, so I don't wanna go out of my way to buy things that I wouldn't necessarily use just because I'm gonna get cash back on it, because it seems kind of like a waste. But there are ways to make it work for you and just get money on things that you're gonna get anyway. The way that the deal is working this year with Ibotta is that you are gonna get a free turkey, but you need to redeem 16 offers before November 22nd. So I'm actually working on mine, and I'm just going through and picking things that I'm gonna buy anyway, and then just buying those items and making sure that I upload my receipt so that I get to my 16 item total, and my goal is to get a free turkey for our Thanksgiving dinner this year. So if you haven't used Ibotta before, go ahead and sign up using my link below. That's super helpful. And if you already use it, then go ahead and give it a shot. I also know that many employers give a free turkey. So if you're getting a free turkey from your employer, that's even better. You can cut the cost down even lower. I think it's about $15 to make this meal if you already have pantry items and you have a free turkey. For dessert, I made a homemade apple pie and fresh handmade homemade whipped cream. It was absolutely delicious, and I'm gonna show you how to do that from scratch. This one is not as much of a simple Thanksgiving as it is a homemade Thanksgiving. So we're kind of working through how to do everything on your own, beginning to end, without as little kind of like store-bought items as possible. I filmed this video in the order that I cooked the meal. So you'll see everything kind of cooking in order not everything at once for one piece of the meal, and I will post the timeline down in the blog so you can kind of check that out. And then I also have free printables for you so that you can write up your own timeline based on when you plan to eat. My shopping list and exact prices at the Walmart where I live in New Hampshire is also down in the blog, so you can just grab that if you want to copy the exact meal. And let's get cooking. It's going to be a fabulous Thanksgiving dinner. And as always, I did want to share, especially this time of year, if you really are struggling with food insecurity and you can't afford the $15, $20, or $30, it is never, ever a bad thing to ask for help. We all need help sometimes, and we're all here to help each other. So reach out to your local church or food pantry. Don't feel ashamed. Everybody deserves a hot meal, especially at the holidays, but really all year round. And if you are somebody that does have a few extra dollars to give, please consider bringing food to your food pantry. You can also look online. A lot of times they have lists of things that they're short on, so maybe everybody brings in canned cranberry, but they're missing some fresh carrots. So look for that. And then cash is also a very helpful item for them, because then they can kind of fill in the gaps, and they can also buy things in bulk to get things for a better deal. So, you know, look out for your food pantry, do what you can to give, grab an extra can give when you go to the store, and it really makes a difference. So we're gonna get started with our bread. I'm making 2 French bread loaves, and we're gonna use one for our baked brie and another for stuffing. I am mixing this up in my mixer with a dough hook. If you don't have that, you can probably just mix it and then knead it with your hands, although I really do love the dough hook. We're doing 2 1/4 cups of warm water, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 tablespoon of instant yeast, or you can use active dry if that's what you have. You're just gonna wanna wait a little bit once you put everything in until it starts foaming. 2 1/2 teaspoons of salt. And then this is where, like, if you have that active dry, you wanna wait until it foams. Otherwise, we can move on. And I'm just adding 2 tablespoons of olive oil and about 3 cups of flour. And we're gonna mix that together with that dough hook, and then add in 2 1/2 to 3 cups more flour. And you want to make sure that the dough basically like comes off the sides of the bowl, and that's why you want to add it a little bit at a time, because if you add it all at once, you may end up with like something that's too stiff. You want to kind of just get to the point where it's coming off the sides versus adding too much flour, or again, too little flour. If you added 2 1/2 cups and it was sticking to the sides, you want to add more. And then we're using that dough hook and going to knead this for 2 to 3 minutes until the dough is completely smooth. And if for some reason your dough does stick to the side, you want to actually add in a little bit more flour until that soft ball of dough forms. I'm going to transfer my dough to a greased bowl and cover it with a towel, or actually I'm going to do plastic wrap.
And then you want to put it in a warm spot until it doubles. It was actually warm outside, so I put mine outside.
And now I want to make little pumpkin rolls that are going to go with the meal, and this is going to be a very similar recipe. We are going to use a couple of ingredients that we didn't purchase, such as a little bit of butter and an egg. If you don't have those, you could just stick with what we're making for the French bread, because that's plenty of bread for everybody for the meal. But I'm going to go ahead and do this because I've always wanted to, and I think that they're going to be really cute. So again, in our stand mixer, I'm just going to use the same setup that we had, and hey, we've got flour everywhere. We're just going to go with it. We're just going to roll with it. Start with 1 cup of warm water and a tablespoon of our yeast, 1/4 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of softened butter, 1 egg, 1 teaspoon of salt, and then 3 1/4 cups of flour.
And then just like the last bread, we're going to mix this together really well with that dough hook and make sure that it's coming off the sides of the bowl. And then you're going to knead it inside the bowl for another 2 to 4 minutes. And I usually put it on medium when I do this. And sometimes it's kind of hard for the mixer to kind of handle it because it's kind of a tougher dough and it's really kneading it like you would do with your hands. So that's okay if your mixer is struggling a little bit. So that's normal. You just want it to be that really soft, and it's almost like it gets like smooth and silky at the end once it's kneaded for long enough. So if you're kind of a more experienced baker, or you get to baking bread a few more times, you'll start to see that it's almost like a shine that kind of comes across the dough, and that's how you know that the dough is ready. But really, like about 4 minutes is going to be plenty of time to beat that or mix it with the dough hook.
So I'm doing the same thing with this one, just oiling down a bowl. I made it into a nice little ball, and I'm gonna set it outside because it's nice and warm. Okay, we can tell this is, oh, it's all the way over the top. It's like really risen. Okay, we're gonna do 2 breads now, one at a time. Okay, you wanna talk about doubled in size? I think it might have tripled. We went a little crazy. It's nice and warm out there. So I've never experienced it rise so fast. It'll be good. So this one, instead of flour, we're gonna use a lightly greased surface. So I'm just putting some olive oil down. Look at the bubbles. Okay. So this is gonna deflate quite a bit right now, which is fine, which is good. And then you can use whatever like type of, you know, I wouldn't use like a knife on this because this is plastic and it will cut. But you could use, I don't know, like a spatula if you need to. Just use your hands, but we're cutting this in half. I do love this, what is it called? I don't know, bread thing. I got it in a whole set, and I always have my Amazon storefront down in the description box for you. So it's everything that I'm always using in every video. So if you ever see something that you want to grab, you can go down there and you can find it. This is going to be under my baking essentials. It comes in a kit, but I have used all the stuff in the kit many times. So I'm a big fan of that. All right, I'm going to set one of these back in the bowl, and we're going to try and make this into a triangle. So we're just going to use our hands here. I do have my rolling pin up. We're not going to need it. We're trying to pat it into like a rectangle that is like a 13 by 9. So imagine if you are making your own Thanksgiving, especially a homemade one such as this, you may know what a 13 by 9 pan is, but if you need to, you can always measure. And the great thing about a baking sheet like this is it actually has centimeters, so you'd have to convert, I guess. So not exactly perfect, but you can see from this video, or you can get a measuring stick and ruler, as they may say, and it's 13 inches by 9 inches. So I am just eyeballing what would be a 13 by 9 pan. Looks almost right to me. We are pretty close. And then what you're gonna do is we're gonna roll it this way, the long way. We're rolling it up. And then you do want to pinch the edge to seal it. Trying my best. I mean, it's not really because it's greased. We're really gonna tie it together here because I want to make sure that it's right. Oh, we're also gonna do this. I'm gonna do it on the ends too. I want a nice soft end. But if you squeeze it enough, it seems to work. And then you are gonna place it seam side down. You can see we have our nice baguette here. We're gonna use 1 pan per baguette because I think it's gonna puff up quite a bit. And then we do just want to put some scores along this. So I have I just use this, it's actually a Milwaukee one, it's for my husband. But I probably should have like a real bread score, but that's okay. This is clean, I clean it, I use it for bread. So I'm gonna cover this with plastic wrap and we're gonna let it rise for 1 more hour. Should be puffy and almost doubled in size. Dinner rolls. Now we're gonna make our pumpkin dinner rolls. So you really wanna push out the air in this. It says kind of like punch it down. And we're gonna cut this into 12 portions, but we're also gonna take a little portion off to the side because we're gonna use that to make stems for the pumpkins. So I'm just kind of stealing this, put this to get back together. And if I do half and then 6 on each side, I should get 12 portions. Similar to what I do with a sourdough, I'm just kind of pulling everything under and then shaping it in my hands. And then I'm gonna place these on a baking sheet. So we're just gonna let these sit for 15 minutes, so cover them up.
And then with that little piece that I had reserved to the side, I just made kind of like a long rope with that and then cut it into 12 pieces. Those are all just going to be the little tops to the pumpkins. So it's kind of an important piece. It's super cute and just super easy just to dice it up into 12 pieces and put it on the baking sheet with the balls.
Okay, I have 12 strings here. This is like kitchen twine, and I cut them hopefully long enough that they're going to be able to go around each pumpkin twice. So we're just gonna actually, get our fingers in here. We've got some olive oil, whatever type of oil you want, but you want to oil these so that they don't stick to the pumpkin. And so now they should be all set. So once our 15 minutes is up, we'll start wrapping the pumpkins up. So we have these all set up. We have our strings. Oh yeah. Fabulous. And your fingers are gonna get a little oily. As with baking, these things happen. Try your best to get it even, but you know, is what it is. Pretty cute. I think it's gonna puff right out. It's gonna do exactly what I'm hoping that it does. I think it's true what they say about finding your passion. I mean, you have to love it. So this is tedious. If you don't love it, if you're not gonna be so excited and proud and you're gonna be stressed out about doing it, then don't do it. You know, I really don't recommend that you do a more tedious baking project like this. Sorry, we got Ben in the background, but if you don't care deeply, about what you're doing, because you can just buy rolls at Walmart and they're going to be fabulous. They're going to be fabulous. This looks a little extra puffy, so hopefully not overproofed. It's actually just so much warmer than I anticipated. But we're going to bake this at 375 degrees for about 20 minutes. I really want it to get nice and brown.
Oh.
Can you tell us how we do it? We're going to make cranberry sauce with JJ.
Cup of water, cup of sugar.
What do we have to do first?
Cup of water.
There you go. All right, now we need to stir it, right?
Yeah.
And we gotta what? This is bring it to boiling?
Yeah.
Can you stir it for me?
Oh.
Good job. We'll bring it up to boiling, okay? All right, JJ is stirring over there. And in the meantime, we're gonna get started on our potatoes. So for the mashed potatoes, I'm just gonna peel these and then I'm gonna cut them into larger chunks so that they boil quicker. And we're really gonna just make the mashed potatoes up and then.
Oh, it's boiling a little bit.
Oh, is it time to add the cranberries then?
What?
Is it time to add the cranberries then?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Boiling.
Ooh, be careful, we don't want that to be too hot. Give it a good stir. Now we're gonna keep stirring that for 5 minutes, okay? Should we set the timer?
Yeah.
Well, when this one says 3 minutes and 24 seconds, then we'll be ready. We got our bread cooking too. You think it's ready?
Yeah.
I want this to go a little longer. What do you think?
Yeah.
Because
Because
it's
it's not.
really jellied.
And I like it to pop. Less? Yeah, less.
So with mashed potatoes, I prefer to use like a yellow potato, a golden or a Yukon Gold, right? Yukon Gold. But they're more expensive. So I wanted to keep the price of this down. So I went with russet, which is fine, but they're just a little bit more of a starchy potato. Not the best for mashing, but we're gonna add plenty of butter and cream. We're actually using cream instead of milk in this, so it's gonna be exceptionally rich.
This cranberry sauce looks so yummy.
I know, the cranberry is gonna be great. We're gonna make our own gravy. It's gonna be really fantastic. Perfect. Whoa.
Oh, that's so big.
I think it overproofed, it's huge. Wow, okay, it's not ready yet though. So I'm gonna make these mashed potatoes ahead. We're gonna salt this water pretty generously. Potatoes really soak up salt. And then we're gonna put them in a casserole dish and bake them when the time is right. So that way we can kind of do them ahead.
I cook these for 12 minutes and then drain them. Basically, you want to cook them until you stick a fork in them and they just kind of fall apart.
So 20 minutes that was like kind of, I don't know, pale looking. So I actually upped the heat to 400 degrees and cooked it for 5 more minutes. And this is the beautiful bread that comes out. It is gorgeous. I'm excited. Okay, so in go my little dinner pumpkins. We're cooking these 22 to 25 minutes. Just for timing's sake, I'm just gonna pour this right into a Pyrex container, and we're just gonna put that into the refrigerator to get it cool, because I don't know about you, but I like my cranberry sauce cold. So I just strained these off after about 12 minutes, and they're kind of on the burner still, electric heat. I'm gonna let them cool off for a little bit, and then I'm gonna run them through a ricer, and we're gonna do that right into some butter and some cream. So now we're gonna get started on our apple pie. I generally do desserts first, but with all the bread baking, I kind of had to get started on that first. I'm just gonna peel and then slice the apples. 4 of them I'm gonna slice for the pie, and then 1 of them I'm gonna slice really, really thinly, and we're gonna actually use that as a topping for our baked brie. So for the pie, I'm gonna mix up the apples before I make the crust, which is kind of unusual, but they're gonna be better the longer they sit anyway, and I just haven't made the crust yet, so let's do it. 3/4 cup of sugar. I'm gonna do a couple tablespoons of flour, a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/8 teaspoon of salt.
And then you just want to mix everything really well and let it sit until you're ready to bake the pie. If you have the pie crust ready and you're ready to go, you just want to let it sit for like 5 to 10 minutes. It should kind of mesh everything together, and it's going to make a better pie that way.
It's a little steamy, so it's hard to see, but these are perfectly golden and beautiful. Holy moly. I am gonna take some of our, you can either use butter, use oil, or you can use the margarine that we bought to just brush over these and make them nice and golden and beautiful. Okay, I also realized that I need to cut the strings off. We can't serve them like that. Chicken, I'm gonna do a little bit of a butter type spread to put on this. We're just gonna use our Imperial margarine type stuff. This is pretty mushy, so it'll go together pretty easily. Got a teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of rosemary, dried rosemary. I'm really low on time, literally and figuratively, but I'm just gonna put in what I have. If I had more, I'd probably do about a teaspoon. And then a teaspoon of sage, maybe a 1/2 teaspoon, because this is like powdered. And just give this a mix. You can obviously use something else if you don't want to use your hands, but we are gonna get kind of into the chicken with this anyway. You can do this in a turkey as well. I'll also put like a separate turkey recipe down in the blog. If you do end up getting a turkey or a turkey breast, there are so many different options for this. You can even do like rolled up pieces of turkey with stuffing inside of it. You know, your Thanksgiving dinner does not have to be that traditional large turkey, especially if you just can't get your hands on one. Like that's what I was really struggling with, finding something that was the right size for my family. But I know that closer to the holidays, we're gonna be able to access that a lot easier. So this is just an alternative for those that either don't like turkey or can't find one or don't want to spend the money, because $7 is a pretty reasonable amount of money to feed your family. And it's still quite delicious. You're gonna get all those Thanksgiving flavors just from a chicken. So you always wanna make sure you get your giblets out. So there's usually like a little package in here. You wanna get that out of there because that's not supposed to be cooked with this. What you do with those, I don't know. Comment below if you have a thing that you would do with those, because I don't. So I'm just sticking my fingers in here and opening up this cavity underneath the skin. See, plenty of room under there. Because we can actually push this butter right under there, this delicious herb butter or margarine. Then I'm taking my wings and I'm gonna just tuck those right underneath the bird. This keeps those wings from burning so they don't get like, the wing tips don't get just crispy and nasty. If you do this, if this doesn't want to go, there you go. Take this butter and really put some under the front and some under the back. This is a really great way to get flavor. Why is this moving so much? Guess I need to put a paper towel under it. I mean, this is where our butter's going, so I'm just gonna use it all. It's a lot, but not mad. It's gonna taste delicious. Then you can just use the top of the chicken, or you can do this on a turkey and just kind of flatten it out so that it kind of evenly covers. It's not pretty, but when you're handling a bird like this, it really never is. I just washed my hands and I'm gonna make up a quick little mix that I'm gonna rub inside the turkey cavity and on the outside of it. So quite a bit of salt, probably another teaspoon of rosemary, half a teaspoon of sage, maybe a quarter teaspoon. If you have fresh of any of these herbs, go for it. The fresher the better. I'm also gonna do about a half a teaspoon of onion powder and half a teaspoon of garlic powder. This is gonna be the perfect little flavor mix, I think, for your chicken. And so you really wanna get the inside cavity with this salt mix. It is gonna give it a lot of flavor. Like I said, if you have lemon or onion or even just like a half a clove of garlic, that's gonna give it a lot too. But we don't have that, so that's okay. I think I lost some butter. Throw it in here. And then you just want to season the entire external outside of this as well. It's gonna be delicious. So we're gonna bake this in the oven at 425 degrees for about an hour and a half. So for the pie crust, I'm just gonna put in 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt. And I used the same thing that had the cinnamon on it, so it's got a little cinnamon, but we're making apple pie, so it's not a big deal. And then we want 3/4 cup of this baking stuff, margarine, whatever it is, and 3 tablespoons. So almost 2 full sticks, not quite. I've got my trusty pastry cutter here, but I am still gonna cut this into like tablespoons to add to this. You do wanna make sure this is as cold as possible. I think some people freeze it, but mine's just straight from the fridge. And then you want 2½ cups of flour. And you can do this with your hands. I'm pretty sure my mom's done that for years. There's also ways to do it with a food processor, which I love. I love doing it in the food processor. But we're just gonna do it the simple old-fashioned method today. A fork is also a good way to fold this all in. I'm gonna cut in 6 tablespoons of ice water. This was ice water. The ice melted though. Should I add more ice? Maybe. And at this point, this is gonna bring it into a dough form. So if you need to, or if we need to, we're gonna add more of the water. You can see how it's getting kind of like shaggy. So it should start to come together almost into a ball. See how it's really coming together here. So I think I might move over to my hands. And I did wash my hands really carefully, like even under the nail beds and everything after touching that chicken. So I felt like that's not usually the order I do things in. So if you're gonna have chicken, you touch the chicken before you touch this. You wanna be careful. See, we can start kind of pressing it into a ball. But I think we're gonna add 1 more tablespoon. And you just don't want to work it with your hands too much because it's going to get warm, and warm pastry dough is no good. But we're close here. This is really starting to get everything together. It's going to be a really flaky dough. Just going to put some flour out here to roll this out. So I have half of my dough right here, and I'm just going to roll it out. Hopefully it's not too crumbly. It's hard because there is a fine line between a nice crumbly, flaky dough and one that is too, not flaky enough, and one that is too flaky and falls apart. I think we might be right where we want to be. I'm really liking the elasticity of this dough. And so there is a secret here that you can roll this over this. And if all goes well, it won't fall apart into a million pieces. And then you actually just roll it right back onto your pie plate. Nothing is perfect in life, but you get pretty close.
I made a second crust. I sliced it to make a lattice crust, so it's just every other. And then I had put the pie filling in there, and unfortunately my camera had died, so I just didn't get that on camera. So fun story here, I was planning on making mashed sweet potatoes, but I baked them in the oven and I didn't put any water, and just the recipe went all wrong. And that just happens even if you're an experienced cook. There are times when you think something's gonna work and it just doesn't, and that's okay. So that's my lesson to you, that you can still make sweet potatoes. I'm gonna put a recipe in the blog, but it's okay if it doesn't work out. So because my potatoes were already cool, which I actually prefer to do when I'm using a ricer, which is absolutely incredible. I recommend a ricer. I didn't have one for years. I had lumpy potatoes. Now I have fluffy potatoes. It's a game changer. So I put a 1/4 cup of heavy cream in the bottom of the pan, and then about 1/6 of a cup of melted butter. I melted it beforehand because usually I would let the potatoes melt the butter, but we're just gonna do this, and then we're gonna put it in the oven to heat it up at 350 when the time is right.
So I probably added about another 1/3 cup of cream, and you can always add more after too if they end up kind of drying out. But we have our mashed potatoes here. They are nothing special, but they will do. Okay, we're gonna slice up our bread for our stuffing. I really should have just made one of these loaves. See, I knew I had a whole, it's a little overproofed, but it's okay. It's not terrible. It's still some pretty good bread right there. Yeah, not overproofed. Just huge pieces of French bread. So we're gonna make our little bread cubes by slicing this into cubes and then tossing them on a baking sheet. Just a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper. And we're just gonna roast these for probably about 5 minutes at 425 and get them all crispy. So I just drizzled these chunks with olive oil, salt, pepper, sage, and rosemary, just a little bit. Now for our appetizer, we're gonna do some little, I was gonna do like a baked brie with apple, but we're gonna do some brie bites with apple. I have about a tablespoon of butter here, and we're gonna add in about a teaspoon of sugar. And then to that, we're just gonna add some thin sliced apple and a sprinkle of cinnamon. And for the brie bites, I just sliced these pieces of bread, but they're so large, so we're gonna slice them one more time to like half moons. Place them on a baking sheet. So we're just gonna top, I sliced the brie up into these little pieces, and then we're just gonna top that with this cooked apple. If you had some like walnuts, that would taste really good on this too. And so I'm just gonna bake this at 425 for about, I'm gonna guess about 7 minutes. So I also have my crusty bread here. If you have fresh onion and celery, you should totally saute that up and add that to this, but I don't, so we're just doing very basic. I have 2 cups of, this is chicken bouillon. Because I don't have fresh onion, I'm just adding about a teaspoon of onion powder. And I'm also gonna add about a half a teaspoon of sage. Just wanna mix this well. You could mix this in a separate bowl, but I figured why not just mix it in when I'm gonna cook it in. And then I'm just gonna dot this with butter. We're gonna cover this and bake it for about 30 minutes at probably 375.
And after about 10 minutes, the baked brie bites were done, and these turned out fabulous. They're a really nice way to use that like triangle brie versus a wheel of brie, and that's about half the price to get the triangle, and you still make quite a bit of these brie bites, and you get that flavor of baked brie without having like the dipping and the mess, and everything is just a single size serving. They're such an amazing autumn, like fall flavor, and they're really cute. And I think, like I said, if you put some walnuts with those, or maybe some sprigs of like rosemary or thyme, it would look beautiful too and kind of bring a little bit of color to it. But just in the essence of budget, we didn't do that. And after about exactly 90 minutes, my chicken was done. The temperature right between the leg and like the thigh, you want to get it right in there, was 165, which means it's perfectly cooked. We're going to let it sit for 20 minutes and then give it a carve. And you can see that crispy skin. It was really flavorful.
Time to get the pie in. I'm just taking some of my cream and kind of pasting it on here. You could use milk, you could use egg wash, just use egg white, whatever you have. Because we have cream, that's what we're using. And then I did cover the sides of the pie with some tin foil because it'll burn if you don't do that. And I don't have one of those fun pie things that you can get, but it's a cool idea. And I'm gonna just sprinkle this with some sugar because it looks nice when you do that. And we're gonna bake this at 425 degrees for about 30 minutes. And then we're gonna turn it down to 350 and bake it for another about 30 minutes. It should be until everything's kind of bubbly and jammy in here.
So at this point, we're going to make some easy homemade gravy with the drippings from this chicken, but this recipe is going to work with turkey drippings as well. I have this gravy separator that I absolutely love. You can see how it kind of gets those pieces from the bottom of the pan and strains those off to get started. And then inside of it, it's going to separate the fat from the actual drippings and then where all the flavor is. And this one actually didn't have a lot, so it wasn't really a problem, but some of the turkeys really do have a lot of fat and you don't want that in your gravy. So I absolutely love this little thing that I have. And so I accidentally poured all my drippings in because I wasn't thinking, because after a long day of cooking, it happens, right? You have those times where you do things that don't make any sense. But you want to start with a tablespoon or two of butter and melt that in the bottom of a pan. And then while that was melting, I got started on some Brussels sprouts. So I just poured my 12 ounces of frozen Brussels sprouts into just a bowl, put a little bit of olive oil, probably about a tablespoon, salt, pepper, onion powder, and garlic powder, and then poured that into the basket for my air fryer. And I air fried these at 390 degrees for 10 minutes. Then I kind of moved them around, and then I did another 5 minutes, and they were perfectly cooked. So you can cook them straight from frozen. You can also follow the instructions on the bag, or you could roast them. And then while those were cooking, I finished up the gravy. So I waited for the butter or margarine to melt. Then I added about 2 tablespoons of flour, and then you just want to mix that around with a whisk. I like to have a silicone whisk on hand because you never really know like what you're going to be using, like unless every single one of your pans is stainless steel, then you're going to want to have a silicone whisk so that you can whisk anything in any type of pan without wrecking the pan. And then to that, once that's all mixed together and kind of toasted, it's going to have that yellow hue to it. You can add in those drippings. You can see these are really rich drippings. And I did save a little bit of the fat on the top of it, but like I said, it wasn't very fatty. And then you just want to stir this and stir it as continuously as possible. I did end up cutting my chicken while I was kind of waiting for it to simmer, and it worked out fine. So it kind of depends, I think, on how well your gravy is coming together. And then as I stirred it a little bit more, I did notice, after I cut that chicken, that I needed a little bit more water to it because it was just kind of thick. So I just added as needed. And then I carved my chicken. So I'm going to put down in the blog a printable that you can, see how to carve a chicken or a turkey. But I do want to say that even if you're the most experienced person, I've cut probably 25 turkeys in my lifetime and countless chickens. There are still tough times. I had trouble with some of the wings on this and some of the legs. So you just want to start off by cutting that drumstick and that leg off and try and find the joint. And then I cut the wings off, and I really shouldn't have. And that's why I'm cutting this breast off a little funny, because the wings will keep the chicken or the turkey straight up, and you can cut them off after you cut the breasts off. But if you do that beforehand, again, not thinking because it's been a long day of cooking, the chicken doesn't really have anything to stand on and it starts to fall over. So remember, legs first, then breast, then chicken. So you slice that breast off, and then you want to slice that breast up into pieces as well. And you have your delicious cut up chicken. This was so juicy, so much flavor, and it really did have that like Thanksgiving flavor to it because of the seasonings we put on it. So there was a question from my kids like, why don't we always have chicken on Thanksgiving? And they had a good point. I mean, just because it's the way it's always been done doesn't mean it's the way it has to be done in the future. And you can see here, this is where the gravy was getting pretty thick. So I just added some water to mine. There was already so much flavor in it. You could also use chicken broth if you feel like there's not really like enough flavor going on, but just adding about 1/4 cup of water made all the difference, and it just thinned it out to my liking. I know everyone likes their gravy a different way, so you do you, add more water, keep it thick like that, whatever you like. So at this point, the stuffing was about to come out, so I started moving everything over to the table. We are using our fine china because I recommend using anything fancier than you would normally use, just to make a dinner like this feel a little bit more fun, a little bit better. Even though we're not spending a ton of money, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have to feel elegant, and it's honestly going to taste very elegant. I mean, I feel like this is better than you'd get at a restaurant personally. And so that stuffing came out of the oven. We're still cooking our pie, which will be nice and warm when the dinner is finished. The stuffing turned out really, really good. It's amazing how simple it was, but it had all of the flavors of traditional stuffing. Like, I like Pepperidge Farm or just stovetop, and it tasted just like it. The pieces were a little bit bigger, so you can cut smaller pieces if you want to, but it was just right.
All right, this has gone a half hour at 425 and a half hour at 350, and I just took those off, and we're gonna let it go another probably 15 minutes, and I think we're gonna be nice and bubbly and delicious. I feel like those bubblies is like when you know that it is done. So the last thing we're gonna do here is make homemade whipped cream. I've got 1 cup of really cold whipping cream and about 1/4 cup of powdered sugar, and I'm just gonna put a little drop of vanilla in here. And then we're just gonna whip it until stiff peaks form. And that's pretty much it. This is gonna taste delicious on our apple pie. And we can pat ourselves on the back for a job well done.
Don't forget, you can get all the information shared in this video in the blog, in the description box. It's gonna have your timeline and some printables and recipes and even shopping list. It's very, very comprehensive. And if you're looking for some more inexpensive holiday inspiration, make sure to click on this next video. It's gonna give you 10 cheap and easy crowd pleasers.
And don't forget, the best thing about apple pie is having it the morning after.